you guys are rolling. So
Cool. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to another episode of Where Are We?
Where are we?
What happened?
We tried this before.
We tried this before. We did that, and here we are again. Another change.
Another change.
So where are we?
We're in a podcast studio.
That's a real podcast studio, finally.
Well, the podcast studio in our house is a real.
It is a real podcast
studio.
But it's our house, and it's a room, not a podcast. And this is more official.
Okay, I can go with that. Yeah, I think the idea of making a podcast studio in our house was a great step. It was fun. We learned a lot. But it's hard to have guests come to your house.
Right. You know, and we also run out of things to talk about each other because we spend 24/7 together, and we get to a point where we already talked about everything.
Yeah, well, I think for me, at least going back to the first podcast that I did with Rougiette in Austin, Texas, you know, I would sit with someone who I hadn't met yet, and it was very authentically just conversational, and I really enjoyed that.
Right.
And because we talked 24/7, it's hard for us to sit and
find new things to talk about.
Yeah, have like an authentic exchange. We need to plan ahead, and that's fine. All the podcasts that we've done in that studio took a lot of planning, which you know, people don't see that part. And a lot of rehearsal. The idea was more educational, right? We were going through things that were medical, health related. There were definitely some things that we talked about that were about our history, where we're at now. But I wanted to move into a direction where, again, it was more authentically about conversations with people that we're meeting. What do you think of it?
I love it. I think it's a great opportunity for us to meet new people and for us to make new connections with the queer community, and also bring voices of people who don't have the opportunity, and you know, share with, you know, all the friends that we have.
Yeah, all the friends that we're making, because that was, like you said, you know, we have moved. We are now in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. So let's talk about Los Angeles. Why did we move here?
I don't know. Why did we move here?
Okay, I'm going to give my perspective.
Okay.
So I think the reason why we decided to move in general was because we were kind of burned out from the place that we were living. You were born and raised in Jacksonville. I moved to Jacksonville in the pandemic, and it felt like we were not going anywhere.
Yeah, you know, we used Jacksonville and our house there as like our hub where we could come, and we basically turned it into a man cave over the last, 5 years. We tailored it to all of our needs, and it's very cozy, which also makes it difficult to leave. So our goal was to travel more. So we were going to use it as like a home base and get to explore other places. The problem is that, yes, you can go and travel places and make friends that way, but you're not able to build relationships, thousands of miles away. We go to Miami, go to New York, LA, Dallas, places we enjoy, Atlanta. And, we'd hang out with friends there, but it's not like we get to foster those relationships. So we were like, what can we do to help put us into a community where we can really focus on building connections? And then we decided to start exploring. And we really didn't have LA as like top on our list.
We had a few places, and LA was one of them. We thought about South Florida. We thought about New York. LA was one of them. And we found a place that we love. And we've been here for 6 months almost now. And we're finally now meeting new people in a podcast studio. I feel like we're finally doing things.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, to give a little bit of context, exactly. We went to Key West a lot. We were looking for a place there. We went to Fort Lauderdale, and specifically Wilton Manors, which we love, and tried to find a place there. Looked in Miami. We looked in Dallas. We looked in Atlanta. We looked in Denver.
We try everything.
We looked in Palm Springs. And we just couldn't find something that spoke to us. And we were here for Halloween. We came to
Horror Nights at Universal.
Yeah, but I think we've been to LA for Halloween many last times. 5 years.
It's funny because we never plan Halloween, and it always is last minute. And in the last 5 years, we went to the same Halloween, which is LA Halloween. We don't do much. We come here. We used to come here, and we'll stay at the hotel and not do anything, see people walking around in their costumes. And last Halloween, we finally did something. We went to Universal Horror Nights dressed as Harry Potter.
Which is canceled now.
Which is canceled.
It was probably canceled back then. You can say it. I mean, that's one of the other dynamics of being queer is falling in love with things that break your heart. So you fall in love with Harry Potter, and then you realize that it's not a loving and supportive franchise. So you have to replace it. But in the time that we try to still celebrate what I think Harry Potter is a very queer story, but that's a whole nother topic. But the point is, we were going to go dressed as Harry Potter to Halloween Horror Nights because, like you said, we come to Los Angeles a lot for Halloween. We usually stay in the hotel the whole time because we have a balcony, which we love, and we get to watch people in West Hollywood kind of going to and from the party. We're like, let's do something this year. So we decided to randomly, as I do, look on Zillow just to see what was available in the area. And we stumbled upon an apartment.
Yes.
So we went to look at the apartment dressed in witch wizard attire because, again, we were en route to Halloween Horror Nights. And we met a couple who owned the apartment. They thought we were crazy? Well, I guess they didn't think we were too crazy because at first they were like, we're not sure we want to move out. And we're like, well, you put the ad up, so we're here. We looked at the place. It was perfect. It was fully furnished, which is what we were looking for because we live on the other coast of the country. And decided to make a jump.
Exactly.
Decided to take a risk. You know, it had everything we were looking for. Mainly what we wanted was walkability. So we could walk to the gym, walk to get coffee, We started our flexibility journey, which was our goal for this year, to start yoga. And now we've been doing yoga for 4 or 5 months. We try to go at least 2-3 times a week. So that was also another thing that we planned to do, and we succeeded on that. We are walking more. We are making new connections. Those are all things that we wanted to do this year. Yep. And I'm having a lot of fun. I love it here. Yeah, so and when we moved here, we didn't plan to start a podcast here. Our goal was that we would meet more people sort of in the entertainment space and social media space because that's where we spend time and that's how we connect with people, like most millennials. And when we were just recently in Maui, which is a place dear to our hearts, we talk about it all the time because it's the first place we went on a vacation together. And it was where we started our podcast, at least me and you. We started our podcast in a balcony of Maui. I don't know if you've been watching us that far back, but we started in the balcony. The audio was terrible. You could hear kids in the background. You could hear the water fountain in the background. It was rough, but we have to start somewhere. Yeah, and again, because my first setting into a podcast was being in a regular studio, and what was funny is that there was a producer involved, and it was very well organized, but I would just come and sit and like not pre-plan at all because, again, I wanted that authentic experience to sort of unfold on camera, and that's where I really enjoyed the process. So going into things like planning our podcast and like having to sit and like manage the sounds and like repeat ourselves over, because in the first podcast I did, there was no like, let's try that again. Let's do another take. You just sit and do it. And I really enjoyed that. So again, trying different things. And then this past time when we went to Maui, we were just kind of doing our thing. And every time I go to a new place, I get re-inspired. Yes. This idea popped in my head, like, why aren't we doing that format where we make friends and meet people and have our first interactions on camera? And let's target people that mean something to us or people that have something to offer to the community. I really want to highlight queer voices that show that you can be from a small town or from a big town and have success in your life, whether that's with relationships, your career, but you can start queer and still end queer and have success throughout that journey. Amazing. So here we are. Well, but first, we're going to have to start somewhere, and it's just me and you for today. Just today, because next episode, we're going to have a guest. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Do you have any reservations or concerns about like doing this podcast? Because this is really your first time talking. English is not your first language. Well, I am a shy guy. I'm a shy person. I'm not shy, but I'm more like introspective, introvert. Sure. But I am very excited. I'm excited to meet new people. I'm excited to talk about our stories, our journey. I'm excited to talk about things that I haven't talked about yet in our podcast setting. Because like we were saying, sometimes we are in a podcast and we already have talked about everything, every story in our lives. We're ready to talk to each other about it. So it's kind of hard to sit and, discuss what happened in the past because
We talked about that.
Yeah, and it feels rehearsed, right? It feels forced because we've already had those conversations. It's funny, like it's even people who I've spoken with to come join us on the podcast. You know, initially it's like, oh, we'll meet for coffee and talk about it. I'm like, no, because then you have that interaction already.
Right. Yeah.
And even when people have, you know, in the past with podcasts I've done and what I plan to do when they come here is try to even limit the interactions we have before we sit down.
For sure.
Because that's really the gold.
Right.
Is how people
first interaction. Also, when you meet a new person, there's so many questions and so many things that you want to ask them. And if you have this interaction with them first,
right,
you know, you get to the second meeting and it's like, okay, so I guess we already talked about that.
Or if you have to find something different to talk about or as a highlight. And so for me, my reservations are these lights are bright.
They are bright. This is not our room.
And it's warm in here.
It's very warm. So we're going to be sweaty and...
Well, my problem is I get very red.
Yeah.
So people are going to definitely point that out, and it's definitely an insecurity of mine.
Don't you worry. You look very cute.
Thanks. But, you know, my skin flushes very easily when I get nervous, excited, or, you know, shy, or say something maybe I shouldn't have, or don't know how to respond to someone else. So that's going to be fun to watch. It's also environmental, like just UV light or any sort of light exposure will cause me to get red. I always shower before I leave the house, and so that also causes me to get red. So just expect a lot of redness from me.
Just take a deep breath and sit back, relax, because it's going to be fun.
It's going to be
excited,
fun.
And
for sure.
I feel the same. I feel very nervous around those lights. There's 3 cameras facing us. You know, this is different, but new chapter, and
we'll see.
So, for the guests, how is it that how we're going to talk to the guests? What we're going to ask them?
Well, I think we could practice for ourselves.
Let's do it.
So typically what I want to know from our guests are where they're from and how they got to where they're at. So why don't you fill in those gaps for the people who don't know you that well?
Of course.
So Gabriel, G, Baby,
Gabe,
Boo,
B,
Bay.
Aww.
What else do I call you? Let's see. All the things I call you. Where are you from?
I'm from Brazil. Minas Gerais, Sete Lagoas, specifically. A lot of people think I'm from Rio or São Paulo. Are you from São Paulo? No. Are you from Rio? No. Where are you from? And then it's so hard to explain because Minas, even though it's a big state in Brazil, probably like Texas of Brazil, it's not very popular. It's not a main touristy destination. Here and there, we meet people who know Minas Gerais, who've been to Minas Gerais, but that's rare. So I usually say I'm from Brazil. And I was born and raised in Brazil. I decided to move to America when I was 20 years old. It was never my plan or my goal, not in the near future back then, to live here so young. And back then, I didn't even speak English fluently. I grew up watching movies, listening to music. I was obsessed with American culture, as we already talked about this. We had the same pop divas, Celine Dion, Britney Spears, growing up. And I was always in love for American culture, but I never thought I was going to live here. Neither I was going to have an American partner. So it's funny because it's a dream come true. I didn't plan, but it just happened when I was 20, and almost 10 years now, here I am in a podcast speaking English.
Wow, speaking English. And you know, when we met, I had no idea. Well, again, I have a very North Florida perception of the world, which has slowly been evolving since we met and even before we met. But I didn't even notice you had any secondary language barriers. I mean, I still don't. It still maybe makes me more frustrated when we're arguing or can't get our points across.
It's funny because sometimes we have arguments, let's say that, because of misunderstandings, sometimes because of language, right? Because I say something because in Portuguese, it means something else. And then
similar, when I say something in English and in your interpretation is it's much worse or it's different.
Right.
And, you know, but I think that's the basis of most arguments in relationships.
For
Usually miscommunication is the culprit.
I feel like a lot of couples who are bilingual, who are from different places, they can relate because, you know, sometimes it's just words. Some words, they mean different things in different languages. You just have to know your partner, understand that you mean well and you love them, because at the end of the day, It's just language.
It's just language. So now we'll ask our guests where they're from, and then
Mhm.
we'll ask them if they'd like to express or explain what their life was like growing up when they were
Yeah,
younger. And we've talked about this
a few
for our
times in
unique
podcasts. Yeah,
stories, but if you want to give us a catch up for those who don't
yeah,
know you or didn't
for
see one of the
sure.
previous episodes, what was it like growing up in Sachalagoas with your mom,
Ah,
dad, and two sisters?
so Sech Lagoas, the translation is 7 lakes. Actually, we had 10 lakes, but
Ooh,
only 7 lakes were
they only
important.
made it. Only seven made it to the cut.
Yes. Very small town, 200,000 people. I guess it's not that small, but it's basically farmland in Brazil and very conservative. My family was not religious or very conservative, but we were Catholic. I went to a Catholic school. All my friends were straight. I didn't come out until I moved here, actually. Never came out to my friends while living in Brazil. I pretended that I was straight, pretended that I had girlfriends, pretended that I like women, but I did not. Obviously, clearly, my mom was shocked when I told her that I was gay. When I was 18 years old, I was dating a guy, and I did not want to lie to my mom anymore. I was over it. I was like, you know what? This is my time. I want to tell her. And she was shocked. She swore to me that she had no idea, even though I've been very gay since the day I was born. And she just needed some time. My sisters always knew too. They always knew in the back of their heads that they had a gay brother because I was wearing their clothes.
How often were you wearing their clothes?
Too often because they all knew, right? They all thought that it was funny.
And what kind of clothes of theirs were you wearing? Were you wearing their skirts? And what age too? Because you do tell me this often.
Okay, so you already know that my princess back then was Snow White.
Snow White.
Since I was 2 years old, I would grab a towel and pretend that was my dress, my cape. Also, I would lock myself in the bathroom and I would try makeup. I would sometimes put bra and panties.
In the panties.
I wanted to see how I look like in women's clothes, lingerie. I mean, why not?
I'm sure I did that at some point, but
Never?
I enjoy that you have this as a very significant memory, because you bring it up like when
Very
we talk about
significant.
I don't know if other couples do this, but we like to dive deep into our childhoods often, and we
For
discuss
sure.
them often, mainly because I think I'm always like trying to get to the root cause of whatever's going on in my head. So we do like to dive into where we're from and how we got here.
Yes.
And so you do have a lot of passion and a lot of memory around, wearing. But I think my question is that because you remember doing it, or is it because you remember getting caught? Did you ever get caught?
You see, I never got caught.
Oh.
No one ever told me that I was doing it, but they all knew, right? I never got caught because I usually will wait till I was alone or I will lock myself, be hours in the bathroom, and I'll open the drawers, put the jewelry on, put the high heels. It was something that I used to do a lot. That's, one of the reasons why I remember so well, because it was part of my childhood. Probably one of my earliest memories was trying women's clothes.
See, I never really got into underwear and stuff until probably late teens, when I started realizing that underwear could help guys look sexier, and I started being like, oh, there's all this sexy underwear out there. So that's when I really dove in. But I don't recall like being drawn to those things until I was older, and now I have thousands of pairs because I have a problem.
Here's the thing: you never had a sister,
right?
So when you're home with this older sister, sometimes younger sister, you wanna try their clothes. You wanna try fit in,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that if I had a sister, I had female cousins, and I never really had access to their things, but I would imagine that, especially when you're younger, you feel the feminine energy, maybe you could say, because you're queer or gay, so you assume, oh, this means I'm a girl or I'm girly, so let me dabble in what else is girly.
But isn't it funny, though? It's just those stereotypes that are ingrained in our brains since we're very young, since we're since we're kids, because at the end of the day, that desire of putting women's clothes never made me who I am. I never proceed with that habit until I never, continued with the habit. It was more like something that I was doing out of curiosity.
Right. So you weren't doing it when you were like 12. You had
No,
given it
yeah.
up.
I was already, I already did that. I already tried
What
that.
age did you stop wearing your sister's clothes?
Probably when I was 5.
Okay, so that's fair. I feel like sometimes when you tell the story, in my head, I'm seeing you wear them like much more older and like much more frequently than you probably were.
Right.
But again, it's an impactful memory.
Sure.
So of course you want to bring it to the surface when you talk about growing up queer because you remember it.
There's other things too. Like, for example, I used to play with her Barbies, my sister's Barbies, and her other dolls because I like to play with cars too. I like to play with masculine toys and feminine toys. I just like to do everything.
Yeah, I loved Barbies. Obsessed. There was actually a specific type of doll. There's like I don't remember. I feel like they had like clothes that were made of like a gummy material, and they were like mini kind of doll. They were like this big, and
Did you have the Polly? Have you seen?
Yeah, that
Polly's?
was really tiny. Polly Pockets. I like those too. I mainly liked not the doll part, but like the little house, because the house it would almost be like similar to Legos, like how detailed some of those little things could be, and you could fold it up into like a tiny little like whatever. To me, I love those like engineering, magician type toys.
My younger sister Tachi, for Christmas, they will give her houses, boats, buses, all you can imagine, Polly's.
Yeah.
And my dad will give me a little car, Hot Wheels, and I'll play with her, and they'll be like, "Why are you playing with her?" Oh, because she gets all the toys, and I get nothing. I didn't play soccer like the other boys did. Especially in Brazil, if you don't play soccer, you're gay. That's the only option, right? If you're a kid in sports, you don't play you don't play any sports, you don't play soccer, you're gay.
Well, you can get injured playing soccer. There's a lot of running, a lot of sweating.
For sure.
I wouldn't have been my cup of tea either. But I did play some sports growing up. I remember playing t-ball, where you have like do you know what t-ball is?
No.
So it's like baseball, but it's for kids, and they put like a stick, and then you put the ball on the stick, and then you hit the ball from the stick. So no one's throwing the ball at you, and so you can kind of get.
That's cool.
You're young, so you're learning how to do the things. So usually that's like 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds.
So here's the thing. I was always very jealous of Americans because there's so many options. At least in the surface, there's basketball, baseball, football, soccer,
tennis, golf,
t-ball.
Yeah, I mean, you name it, there's a lot of options. And that's what I did too in school. I didn't play sports ever until high school, and then the only reason I did was to interact with other people and have something to do. But it had to be a no contact sport. I didn't want anyone touching me. I didn't want any potential risk of injury. So I did swimming, and I did track and cross country. So
I always wanted to do swimming, but too expensive.
The football players all would do cross country or track on their off season, so that's also why I did it, because I got to hang out with the football players without having to play football.
Cool, that's cool.
Not that they became my friends, but I mean, it's weird. When I was in high school and middle school, I went to a private school, and everyone was kind of friendly. Like we didn't have like the cool kids or the not cool kids. Everyone just kind of got along, which was nice. I felt very sheltered in that experience, especially being gay. Like it's already traumatizing, even if you're in a good school situation.
For sure.
But school's tough. So you got through school though?
Yeah, I got through school. I went to a Christian school, Catholic school, until I was 15. And then after that, I went to a school where I had no religion, and it was tough. It was a lot of studies, a lot of classes, a lot of exams. We will be in school from Monday to Saturday. Saturday will be all day doing this exam from 12 to 7. It was intense, but I love it because I got to hang out with the people in my class. Even after class, we'll hang out. We'll have like parties in like someone's house. It was just really fun. I had like great experience in my last 2-3 years of school. I just had a blast. Even though I couldn't express myself the way I wanted to as gay, I had a lot of friends and I really enjoy it. So I think, like you said, that brought me comfort throughout those years. It helped me to survive because I was obviously scared of people's reaction, knowing that I was gay. So I always hid that. And it was not until my last year that I met my ex-boyfriend that time, and I was in a relationship with a man, and that was my first. So it was not until the very end that I started lying to my friends, because when I started dating him, I was hanging out with him, right? And they were like, who is that guy? And I was like, well, that's my cousin.
We were talking about this. If you ever get like scared or confused or lost with someone saying, who is that? You could always be like, it's my cousin.
You know, it always works because they never question. They never like, oh, he doesn't look like you. Well, it's my cousin. I don't know. You know what I mean? There's never.
You can say, let's just be cousins.
Deep cuts.
Deep cuts. Yeah. So for me, you know, it's interesting. You found sort of your tribe with school, you know, those last few years. And I kind of found my tribe at that time too, but it was the opposite. It was out of school. I always had a relatively good relationship with school because it didn't require much of me. I've told you before, I'm a pretty good test taker. I was always kind of good at getting by. I'd always make A's and B's, never go to class. My teachers would be like, how are you passing? You're never here. And I'd be like, I don't know. But around 15, I started to realize that there was a larger queer community in a bigger city about 2 hours from me in Orlando. And so I had a friend that lived there, so I would commute a lot. And then when I got my license, I would skip school a lot and go to Orlando, because once I realized that I could find a community of people who were like me.
Right.
And mind you, this was 2006. So yes, the internet existed, but it wasn't connecting us on that level where you could feel like your community was in your fingertips, you know? So I was always like checked out of school. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want anything to do with it. And so my escape was trying to be with those other queer people, which meant that I was putting myself at risk because I was hanging out in adult places with adults and doing adult things at a time that was way too soon. So I think now about like kids who, you know, get to be exposed to other queer youth and can create and foster relationships there. It's so much better for your kids to hang out with queers their age than to shun them and make them feel like they can't access those other people that are similar to them, to where they have to do it in secret and they have to lie and they have to compromise maybe some of their own integrity. Like, you know, looking back, I thought I was lying to survive. And if you learn to lie to survive, that is not a good habit that you bring to your adult life. Exactly. Learning those skills. And we start lying when we're 5 if we, you know, are in a situation where we can't be ourselves. And so, yeah, definitely not something I encourage people to do at 15, 16, to like run out to your local gay bar. But, you know, for me, it just helped me feel like I was a part of something.
Right.
Because school always made me feel like I was like not in the right place.
You know, every time you talk about your experiences at 16, a gay bar, I feel kind of jealous because I never got to experience that until later on. Like I said, I came out when I was here in America. I never came out actually, but I just started posting pictures naked. I guess people got the hint.
Half naked.
Oh, yeah, naked, and kissing you. So I guess that's enough.
Sure. Shout out to your family who's also been watching.
You know, it's funny because I never came out to my aunts or my grandma, but I've been posting gay content since I moved. So I guess they always...
I can relate. You know, I don't know who in my family, because luckily my immediate family doesn't have like social media to my knowledge. So that never really was a thought in my head. And now, of course, a lot has been shown from both of us. So I have nothing to hide. It's when you're younger too, I would have been much more like, oh my God, I can't let my parents or anyone see this. But after I came out to my mom at like 23 or 24, I was like, well, I don't really give a shit anymore.
Isn't it funny? I think for most gay men, I think coming out to our moms is like that last thing that we need to do. And after that, regardless of her reaction, if it's bad or not, we feel like a sense of relief.
Yeah.
I felt that way, even though I didn't come out to anybody other than her back then. But I did feel like she was the only person that deserved to know.
Yep.
Because I didn't think that other people deserve to know my business in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you know, we don't have to tell your relatives that you're gay.
Right.
You know, it's just something that, I don't know, I never felt comfortable talking about.
Yeah, I had a weird situation because my mom was helping me throughout medical school, you know, financially. You know, I had taken out loans, which luckily I didn't have to do too much of in order to pay for my tuition. But things like food and gas, and so I couldn't have a job. Actually, we weren't allowed to have a job and be in medical school at the same time.
Wow.
So, you know, I depended on my mom to put $20 in my account every 3 or 4 days so that I could get a $5 meal from Chick-fil-A or McDonald's and put gas in my car. And so I was worried that if I verbally confirmed that I was queer to her, that might get taken away. But as soon as I was almost completed with school, it was my last year and it was Christmas, I was home for break. We went to a Mexican restaurant. I'll never forget. We were like the only people in there. And Tijuana Flats, shout out Jacksonville. We were there and I just couldn't take it anymore. I had to just say it. And even in the moment when I said it and saw her reaction, which was not great, I just felt immediate relief. It's like, it's out of my hands. It's now for you to accept and you to do something with, and I don't have to worry about it anymore.
100%. I remember same thing. I came back from school, did not plan at all. I said in my head, you know what? I'm going to tell my mom today. I don't want to live with this anymore. So after lunch, I said, Mom, I need to talk to you. And then I brought her to her bedroom. And I said, I am dating somebody. And she was so excited. She was like, oh my God, who is she? And I said, well, it's not she, it's a he. And she was like, okay. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. But even though her reaction was negative, in that moment, I was so relieved because it was just like a big weight off my shoulders. And I was not lying to her anymore. So I was happy. Fast forward a few years later, I move out from my city. I start living in the capital of Minas Gerais, Belo Horizonte, which is an hour away from my hometown. Obviously more liberal. There were gay bars, even though I never been to a gay bar there. But it still felt very small. And then after living there for a year, I went to Rio. That's where I lived in my next 2 years. Where I went to school. I went to law school in Rio, which was a very interesting experience because I never thought I was going to live in Rio, neither live in Rio for school.
Yeah, I think people would be surprised to know that you went to law school because you really don't talk much about it. And, a lot of times when people are passionate or go to school in one place and then move to another, they continue it. Did you want to continue law school here at some point, or what was your idea for that? Or you were just like, this isn't for me?
So in Brazil, you graduate from high school and then you go to law school. It's not like you have to have a degree so then you go to law. It's a little different, right? It's like medicine as well. You can graduate from high school because high school in Brazil is a little different. It's kind of like the first 2 years of college. And then I really enjoy law school in Brazil, even though law in Brazil is completely different, right? The constitution is completely different. There's the civil rights are completely different. There's like big massive books where all laws are written down to a T, where in America it's more like case by case. Moving here, my first goal was to go back to school and specifically go back to law school because it was something that I always liked to study, laws and cases. But I don't know if now adult is something that I'm interested. I don't think so.
It's difficult to say. It's funny because we actually thought we would take we go through many different phases. Like I mentioned, we were in Maui and I get inspired to do one thing. That's one thing I love about our relationship is we're constantly inspiring ourselves and we never shut each other down. Like for sure. Like earlier this year, we're like, what if we both went to law school one day? Maybe in 5 years or 10 years.
Mind you, that was right after we finished our bartending school, which was completely different. So we're always trying different things. Sometimes people get confused because we try everything. But we just want to,
live life to the fullest.
Exactly.
And for me, if I have an interest to do something, I don't have kids. And if I have the means to do it, or if I have the energy to put into it, I want to do it. And who knows? Maybe we will go to law school still one day. But
who knows? That would be super fun. I think we never told anyone, not even a friend. This is kind of like something that we just don't talk about it. But I think since we met, we've been talking about this, that we always wanted to go to school together. And we did talk about going to law school together because that would be an experience.
Right. Interestingly enough, though, school in the United States is not as easy as it sounds. Just so you know, if you have a bachelor's degree and you want to go back to school, some schools won't even let you retake the courses. It's been over 10 years for me to take, calculus. I'd like to do it again. So if I go to business school, I know what to do with these numbers and or accounting. You're not allowed. You're just not allowed.
That's crazy.
Or you can take it with no credit. So we went through all of that. So there's ins and outs as to why we did not start this journey right away.
There's just a lot of bureaucracy, right?
Yes.
It's funny because growing up, you think Oh, Americans, they have it all. They have perfect education. They have great health system. They have an amazing democracy. But then when you live here,
Well,
it's
things have
not.
changed,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's interesting. Like the way things are set up. Obviously, undergrad and graduate school, they're still geared towards like youth and like your
for
first
sure.
experience. You can do it
Yeah,
once and that's it. And
yeah,
you know, for me in my head, I thought education was always something you could come back to. You hear people going back to school at any age, and you
yeah,
can. It's just very difficult. They make it as hard as
for
possible
sure.
for you, even if you're not even trying to get loans. Like we were like just trying to pay
Pay
for a
out of pocket.
class.
Yeah. I just want to go to class. I just want to learn.
Just want to learn. But
It's
that's what
hard.
then led us to reading, which,
Yeah,
you know, it was a big part of your life growing up.
for
I
sure.
think is what has rubbed off on me. It took about 5 years, but now I read for fun too.
Yay.
And we're learning to read and learn on our own
Yes.
sort of wavelength and at our own time. So that maybe in the future, like I said, we could go to law school. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. So what we're going to do with our guests, we're going to ask where they're from. We're going to find out, you know, what they were passionate
Stories.
about in their stories when growing up and how it was for them queer in their hometown.
What brought them here to LA, or what happened in their lives, their journey? Where do they live?
Yep.
And
And how they're impacting the people around them now and how they got to us
yeah,
and how we relate.
yeah,
You know, I think that's the main thing is we really want to foster relationships this year. We really want to connect with people that mean something to us. And I think we're on that path. You know, we're going to have some incredible people come through here. And I hope that this is just the beginning of something really exciting and fun for us. I hope you get to enjoy it too. I know that I typically take the lead on these things because I have a motor mouth, which, you know, has gotten me to where I'm at today. So you're going to be here with me and we're going to go through it. And hopefully you can bring some guests as well, maybe some Brazilians,
sure.
some people
Yeah.
who speak Portuguese. And
I know a few.
you can use a little bit of your native tongue. And I think over time too, like,
Yeah.
you know, when I was forced into the sort of experience initially, I was like a deer in headlights. You know, the first time I posted a reel in that podcast studio, people crucified me
Right.
for the way that I looked
Yeah.
because the angles and this and that, and they
Yeah.
just weren't used to it. Totally fine with it now. Come at me, bro. But, you know, we'll see. Once you get more comfortable and we see more people, I think you're going to be talking just as much as me. But in the meantime,
We'll see.
you know, chime in when you want, hang out when you don't. And we'll make it fun for both of us and hopefully our guests too.
I'm excited. Like I said before, it's not like I'm shy, but it's more like an insecurity, especially because English is not my first language, and a lot of my thoughts are Portuguese, sometimes in English, but then like the translation might be a little slower, and like the conversation might be a little slower. So it's always been a see the words.
Well, it just like you saying that
It just
though.
happened.
Yeah.
But even when we met for the first time, it always been an insecurity of mine to talk to you and, oh my God, what if I'm not saying the right thing? What if he thinks I'm an idiot? What if, you know what I mean? All those things that when you're foreign, and obviously when I hear someone who is not from America and talks to me in English, and I know their insecurities too, I can relate. I know that I can understand them completely well, that it's totally fine. But when it's you and it's in your brain, you feel like, I wish I could speak fluently and la 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 la.
Well, let me tell you, when it's, you know, midnight or 2 a.m. and you and I are still awake and we are literally like going ham talking to each other as if we hadn't seen each other all day already, just tap into that. It's not going to be easy, but eventually you will fly into that. I feel the same. You know, these, like I said, these lights, these cameras, it's not that I feel insecure about like my ability to communicate. It's more just the pressure of being in this environment. I'm not comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm probably red already. You know, this isn't the way I want to present myself. I want to be very meticulous like I can be on social media. But when you're in a podcast studio, what you see is what you get. You can't really do too much.
And we want to be natural. We want to have a conversation where it's not, nothing is a script. Right. Nothing is planned out. We want to have a full dialogue flow with a new person or someone that we already know, but we just want to have a conversation, and we want people to feel home. We want people to feel here, be part of the conversation.
Right.
I think that's the main goal, because we see a lot of podcasts or a lot of other outlets that they have people who, you know, and that's okay. That if that works for them, amazing. But for us, what always worked is conversational. I feel like even the first day we met, we were talking all night. And when we meet someone who we talk a lot to, because we have a lot of questions, we want to know them and we want to, relate to them.
Yeah, and connect, and that's the real goal too, is for us to connect with people on social media who may be watching this, or on YouTube who may be watching this, or maybe listening to this audio version of the podcast, or the people that we get to invite here and hopefully get to hang out with again. Our goal is, instead of just bringing people that come once, we hope we'll have returning guests too, where we can continue to build relationships with them over time and see them evolve and change and see them progress just like we do when we're in the studio. The first time that we're going to record with someone, we're probably going to be a little bit different than maybe 10 episodes in or 20 episodes in, if we get to that point, which I hope we do. And maybe people that are listening or joining to tune in to us can give us recommendations. We'd love to hear tips on things we should try.
For sure.
Again, not on our outfits, by the way, because we are going to be comfy, cozy.
We are going to need
gym clothes,
new tank tops, because we only wear the same tank tops over and over again. So we're going to have to get
hopefully our guests will come very comfy, cozy, because that's sort of the strategy as well, is keeping it relaxed. But really, maybe tips too on people we can invite. If you know people in the LA area who are queer and have interesting stories to share, please leave them in the comments below.
If they have any questions that they think we should ask to our guests, that would be amazing too. And if you've been following along since our oldest videos, thank you for watching.
Let us know too.
Let us know. You guys are the best, and we're very excited to create new content and share new things, because that's what we like to do. We like to share a little bit of our stories with people who, sometimes are 2,000 miles from us.
We get great feedback online, but there's nothing more rewarding when we're at an event, or we're at a concert, or we're at Trader Joe's, and someone comes up and they say, hey, you're the guys from the podcast, or you're the guys from the Reels, or I seen your Instagram, and it's really cool. It's nice to meet you. And it kind of just makes it full circle worth it.
It's a joy. It makes us wanting to make more content and to share more things, because sometimes we have the days where we feel like maybe we're doing too much. Maybe we are oversharing. Maybe we need to take a break, right? Because we did it in the past. Because social media can be overwhelming, can be a lot. We can't spend a lot of time on social media, because we're not only, creating, we're also watching ourselves in videos. So that can be hard sometimes. And when we see someone out and about and they tell us that they love our videos and they feel inspired by our story, it brings us joy. It brings us, it's, like you said, it's a full circle moment where we're like, we have to keep going.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things that I've learned throughout all the previous videos that we posted, which if someone's out there and they're like, should I do a podcast? Should I start posting videos? Should I start making content? I say do it immediately, and understand the first thing you post is not going to be great. The second, the third, the fifth, the 10th. You may not like stuff. You may not like the formula that you're using. You may not like planning it out. You may not like rehearsing.
You may have no views. You may have no feedback. You may have feedback, and you may have negative feedback, which is probably the worst thing that can happen to you. But you just have to keep going. You just have to keep evolving. Don't let those comments
deter you. And it's a learning experience. Like every single episode that we've done has every single episode that we have done up until this point has taught us something, or helped us build confidence, or helped us understand that this is something that we don't like, or this is something we do like. And like I mentioned, it just takes one day of sitting on the beach for you to have an idea and say, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot again. This is what feels most rewarding to me. I love just sitting here, relaxed, cozy, creating new relationships, meeting new people. So hopefully people join us.
I'm so excited.
Follow along.
So excited.
And we get to introduce them to new people. And we just see where this goes.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes.
So do you have any questions for me before we wrap this up?
What's for dinner tonight?
Probably sweet green. That's a whole nother topic for another day.
Yeah.
So we look forward to sharing the mini episodes ahead.
Yay.
Leave us comments.
If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, because we're probably not going to ask again, because I feel like we always ask that.
It's just too forced. We're not we this is a different era, a new season.
Yeah,
we're past that.
we're
So
gonna
if you
just-
haven't subscribed yet, don't worry, you don't need to.
Do what you want to do.
Yeah, if you watch this video at this point, until this point, that means
You've stuck around. You're here.
you're curious or
family.
something.
And we look forward to what this journey holds for both of us and for you all.
Thank you for watching.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.